Welcome to another edition of the Resort Trades Learning Center, where we bring expert insight to professionals in the vacation ownership and travel club industries. Today, we're diving into a critical and often misunderstood topic, and that's data security. From guest records to payment systems, your resort is sitting on a gold mine of sensitive information. So with us today are Odilia Guiant and Jeff Healy. They're with Trinity Service Enterprises, and both of them have deep experience helping businesses like yours stay a step ahead of cyber threats, as well as execute their main business. I hope you'll pardon me as we just ask you a question to more or less introduce yourself. Jeff, perhaps you could describe Trinity and what you do there.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Great to be here. Great talking with you about this. Trinity, the new Trinity, is a combination of a company that Odilia has led for the last 7 years and a company that I purchased a few years ago called BLC. And we combined the two companies because in our industry, I just feel like we don't need a lot of small ones. We need to be a little stronger and bigger, and it made a lot of sense for us. But as a company, our core area is financial service solutions for the resort industry primarily, which would incorporate loan servicing, portfolio management, collections, maintenance fee billing and collections. We provide a ton of credit card merchant processing solutions for clients internationally and within the U.S. Multi-currency, we can handle a lot of different things, banking infrastructure. Then we also have an entire contact center operations, which is resort reservations, club reservations, pre-arrival outbound calls, additional marketing programs for some of our clients that want those services. We basically can provide almost any service in the resort industry, except we don't build the hotel, we aren't the hotel manager, and we're not the on-site sales and marketing team, but everything in between is really what we can help with. And our goal is to fit in where you have gaps. And so we can do everything, but we really fill in gaps because that's really where, you know, groups need certain areas that they need more expertise or need to take things off their plate so they can focus on the critical things for their business.
Well, we want to thank you today for being with us, because I think this is a part of our business that's often overlooked and ignored. We often hear about data security, but payment processing tends to fly under the radar. So what are some of the key risks resorts face when handling credit card or bank transactions?
I guess I'll take that. Hi, Sharon. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Basically, you know, there's a number of things that impact data security when it comes to credit card transactions. And some of those things can be improper storage or transmission of credit card data, such as sending things via email or via unsecured methods. Untrained staff mishandling sensitive data is a big one. The use of paper in a call center is also a key factor that can add a lot of risk to an organization. Third parties, you know, as you use vendors, obviously we're a third party that provides services to our industry, but you really have to associate yourself with people that have good systems in place that, you know, really pay a lot of attention to detail in terms of encryption and having internal controls. The other thing you have to also be very, very aware of is you have to have solutions to system failures, right? So occasionally things will go down. So you have to have certain protocols in place because it may disrupt your transactions and cause customer issues and data breaches, right? The other one is, you know, from banking information and credit card information, which is both very connected. If you don't have the standards and controls in place in your organization, you could be seriously impacted.
Absolutely. And you've had a ton of experience. I know you've run into occasions, I'm sure, when things were disrupted and you managed to work out a lot of solutions in advance before these occasions happen. I did see that Trinity Service Enterprises recently completed an SOC1 Type 2 audit, which is a mouthful, and followed PCI compliance standards. So for those less familiar with these terms, can you explain what they mean and why are they important?
Well, when it comes to a SOC 1 for our type of business, both of those are critical, right? PCI is a standard for managing credit cards. PII is also another standard for managing, just general contact information, from a consumer perspective, which includes like name, address, phone numbers, things of that nature. But then SOC comes in, and what SOC does is it evaluates you as an organization. It really, comes in, looks at every point in your organization where you're touching a financial transaction. It makes sure that it follows the standards set in place by international and national organizations that, account for those types of transactions. So for us, since we work with lenders, in our industry, and we work with a lot of banking institutions, we have to keep those in place. So even though Trinity came up, the ranks and was a small organization, it had to invest heavily on making sure that we could, come in and bring a third party to ensure that we're handling check transactions and that we're handling, credit card transactions the way that, any company should, of any size, really, because it should really go cross industry. It should really go cross, company size. And obviously the larger you are, the more touch points you have, and the more important it becomes to go and get certified by these third parties that come in, or to comply with the standards of PCI DSS, right? So to add to that, on the PCI side, all credit card transactions should be tokenized. It's absolutely necessary to have all your transactions tokenized, to not write down credit card information, to not have them on spreadsheets or be transferring unencrypted data, so forth and so on. So those are the kinds of things that you should really, or the reasons why you should really, set those standards in place for your organization.
Well, that's what you're there for. Yes. I imagine this is obviously a whole enterprise unto itself, that particularly a small legacy resort, or even a smaller organization, maybe like Westgate. Why build it if you've already built it? So even if they're small or has a trusted team, where are the biggest blind spots you see when it comes to protecting owner data and payment information?
Well, I think anytime that you're running a business, you really need to, no matter the size, you should really focus in on where your vulnerabilities are, right? So data is really, really important. And even if, you start very small, you can really be taken down by the penalties that are associated with some of these violations, because these are all regulations that you have to follow. They're not just an option that's out there in case you want to take it or not. Like, we are obligated not only to the government, to the legislation, and to our consumers and their clients, right? So we have to put these in place. But in general, small properties need to eliminate paper in their call centers. Those are some basic things. It's just an educational process, right? You have to use things like multi-factor authentication. Those things are not very difficult to put in place. You have to train your staff on really what cybersecurity is. We can't just assume that just because somebody's hired and has worked somewhere before, that they know what it is to be secure in managing data or mitigating risks. Some people don't even understand that writing down a simple credit card number is a problem, right? So those things you can put in place pretty easily and without a lot of, financial backing, right? So, but the one thing we really do recommend is find yourself some cybersecurity companies that can come in and really audit your network, figure out how your network is set up, where the critical areas are so that you could, set up systems, and you could probably do it for pretty inexpensive amounts of money, but, Jeff and I were just talking about this before this call in reference to this specific question. This is one of those points where you should really decide what your core function is as a resort, right? So is it to tend to your customers, to give them a great experience? Should you really be looking at companies like Trinity and other companies in the industry that can provide the services to you and get rid of a lot of that security, issues?
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jeff, if you want to add to that a little bit, because I think this is an important one.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think, as we kind of look at our industry, a lot of it is all driven on sales and marketing, and that's kind of the focus. Obviously, the resort itself and the experience at the resort, that's a lot of stuff. And as we know, the vacation ownership industry has a lot of moving parts. It doesn't make more sense to push certain operations outside of the day-to-day in-house stuff so that they can focus strictly on what they do best and what their focus is, which is sales and marketing, guest experience, and let somebody who's an expert at some of these other functions handle those. But it has to be the right outside solutions, ones that fit well in with your organization and plugs in nicely to your operations. But then, as we've talked about with data security, you got to make sure you select those partners that have very, very strong internal controls and cybersecurity structures, so that they can ensure that all of your customer data and all your customer transactions are well protected.
Right. Well, I guess for resorts that don't have in-house IT or finance departments, what are a few concrete things that they could do this month to reduce risk and boost security without breaking the bank?
Well, I think in general, like we said, education is key, right? Nowadays, we're just talking about AI. You have so much information available to you on how to secure your network. Training your staff is something that you can do very, very easily without having to go out and spend money. It's very simple to go out to, different references that are online. You can go to the, legislation type of websites. You can go just basically ask AI in general, what are the standards that I should put in place? You can map your network. I think a lot of organizations forget to map their network, what it looks like. From a simplistic perspective, most of us just turn on the computer and expect everything to work, right? Because we're on the operational side of things. But the IT people are the ones that are really managing this world of systems and people and users and intersections between systems that are critical, right? That should always be mapped out. You should have a map of your network. You should create one so that you can really see where your vulnerabilities lie. So that would be my recommendation. You could do that without investing a lot of money, right? You can look at what kind of systems and who you're partnering with. You can ask some basic questions to them related to how they manage their security. What are the things that they put in place? Are they PCI compliant? Are they PCI certified? Do they have SOCs in place? So there's a lot of discovery that I think that you can really do that doesn't cost a lot of money, that can ask the right questions so that you can understand what risks you're really facing in the event of, a security failure.
Data security is a critical element out there right now. I mean, there's so much attack on that from outside sources. Just by itself. So obviously having the correct infrastructure and controls on the system itself is an important component.
Yeah.
But the other is being loose with the data. So then as Odilia outlined all of the various things, writing credit card numbers down, not having strict rules on who has access to data, all of those things are really, really important steps. So not only do you have outside people attacking your data, you also have internal mistakes creating other risks of data getting leaked out. So you need to focus on it from both sides. And again, in today's market, we know that stuff is out there in today's world. it's a very delicate area, and you've got really, really important data of a ton of consumers. So it's really important that that's a priority.
Yeah, it's very complex, very reassuring, I'm sure, to have a company like Trinity to manage all of these aspects, because it's a 24/7 job. I can see that. I don't know how y'all sleep at night.
We don't.
We pray a lot. We pray a lot, and we put a lot of. We have really good teams.
Yeah.
We have really good teams, and we have really good partners that we do work with in the industry that take security very, very seriously.
Right. Absolutely.
And so that's how we sleep. We partner with the right people, and you put the right protocols in place, and then sleep comes next.
Well, it sounds like you guys are great to work for. Thank you very, very much for spending time with us, and I hope we'll see one another at the next
one of the 20 events this year. Yeah,
exactly.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
All
well,
right.
thank you so much, Sharon.
Oh, you're welcome, Jeff. Thank you. Okay.